Welcome, everybody. We're live. This is this week's community call. Once again, we're hitting new all-time highs when it comes to the quality and standards of these community calls. People don't believe that they keep getting better, but every single week they indeed keep getting better. I am your host, Sudo. Welcome, everybody. And I also have with me today two fantastic colleagues of mine. First of all, Diane. How is it going, Diane?
Everything's good. How are you?
Doing great. Super glad to have you back as co-host. As you guys know, Diane's in and out of these Nym community calls. Sometimes she comes and co-hosts with me, which brings a nice little refreshing change after Hux and the two ADHD brains of the team. But of course, importantly, we also have with us Casey, who may be new for a bunch of you guys, or you don't know, but you've already been consuming some of the stuff that Casey has been doing. So that's mostly what this call is going to be about. How's it going, Casey?
It's good. Thanks for having me on.
It's amazing to have you on.
It's our first heat wave in Brussels, so we're all sweating. That's silly.
Yeah, I'm going insane here in the Netherlands. I don't always have to, wear tank tops, but I'm going insane over here. All right, so a bit of a housekeeping before we get started. So the call was announced as disrupting the NymVPN market as its title, but one of our very secret top secret guests was not able to make it. So instead, we're going to be focusing on Casey, an introduction to him, old school style, just like with the old Nym community calls, where a lot of them were about introducing Nym team members. And also we're going to be talking about Nym Dispatch and the various articles that came out and will come out as part of the series. If you don't know what Nym Dispatch is, you will find out about it very soon. It's a really exciting new series on the Nym blog that we have started fairly recently. Now, the usual housekeeping item is that if you have any questions, we're of course keeping a close eye on our chats, both here on YouTube and Twitch, but also on Matrix. So if you want to preserve your privacy, you can also leave your questions in the Nym Matrix general chat. We're keeping an eye there, whether it's for you, or not for you, for Diane, Casey, or myself. That's basically it. Oh yeah, and whether you're watching the recording or the or this live stream with us, please drop a like. Let's serve the algorithm gods and whatnot. If you drop a comment and it's a positive one, that's very good because the algorithm absolutely loves that. And maybe more people find out about these excellent, truly amazing community calls. And with that, actually, I'm going to hand over to you, Diane. You're my co-host after all, so let's introduce Casey to the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Sudo, for the intro. You speak so smoothly. It feels like everything is scripted, but I guess it's not. I don't know. We can't tell, really.
It's all in here.
You must be getting used to doing these after over a year, I think, right? Long time. So let's dive into Casey. Thank you so much for coming on, Casey. Me and Sudo work in the same team as Casey, so we know him pretty well by now, and he does amazing work. Casey, who are you? What do you do? Please enlighten us.
Well, first of all, I'm a writer here at Nym. So we're trying to give, in general, informative content, not just content, but like content that can actually help explain to users of the web, users of VPNs, users who are concerned about their privacy, with the information that they need to understand basically everything, no matter how technical it is. So that's our goal, is to be kind of pedagogical, and also to be a voice in the privacy ecosystem. And so what we've been doing is pushing out articles like this, both on the VPN blog and on the Nym Tech blog. But actually, at the base, I'm a philosopher. I'm a social thinker. And so I often approach these issues with a particular kind of lens, which is to understand how technology has a place in society and what kind of problems can emerge and what kind of threats there are to values that we have. And so that's where I come from. That's how I arrived at Nym. I'm really happy to be here and work with people like Sudo, Diane, and many others.
Sorry, Sudo, can I ask you a follow-up question? Casey, I saw that you have doctor in front of your name. You're Dr. Casey Ford, is that right?
I did my PhD in philosophy at the University of Guelph in Canada.
Okay, I just wanted to understand like how you got into technology, especially privacy, how you kind of got to Nym.
Yeah, I mean, I got to it by people who know the company well, and also because I'm really interested in anti-centralized forms of social interaction, and also really guarding against the threats that centralization poses to people in general. And so at Nym, we're focusing on the centralization of we're trying to develop technologies that can counter the ways in which people's personal data is centralized and the huge potential that can come from that in a negative way. And so I'm really interested by how decentralized technologies can help preserve not just privacy, but can help preserve freedoms in general. And I really value anonymity in many domains, and not just technology. So I came here by a sort of zigzag route, but I think maybe many people did also.
That's interesting because you say that you're from a philosophy background, right? Yet before this call, when we were preparing for it, you did ask me to, if I have any technical questions, to make sure to ask you those because you really want to cover them. How come that's the case?
Because I like punishing myself, and so I've already put in a lot of work to learn some of the technical aspects of how all this works, which did not come easily, but it's fun.
I was lying, guys. I was lying. I was just putting Casey putting someone on the spot. Is that the expression? I think, yeah. I was just doing that. Don't worry, no technical questions for you. But I do have a fun one for you actually, which is about Nym Dispatch, the aforementioned Nym Dispatch. So this is something exciting, which I've been looking forward to seeing on our blog for quite some time. Something like this has been in the idea phase for some time on the Nym blog. It's a bit different from just talking about Nym and the developments at Nym and maybe programs that we're launching or any updates around Nym. It's a bit of a venturing away from that. So let's talk about Nym Dispatch, what the idea is behind it, and how it came about.
So for a long time on the blog, we've been publishing articles directed towards our particular community, Nym operators, of Nym contributors, people who know the project very well. And of course, we are a company, but we're also lots of different types of things. So we're launching our first product. That's one important thing that matters a lot to us, and we really have a lot of faith in that product, that it will provide a genuine service to people. But we're also a community of researchers. We're a community of activists, people who just love privacy, and I think that we're looking for a way to be more engaged with socially, to be more engaged with what's happening around the world. And so in order to provide a good privacy product, we need to really understand and also make people understand what other products are doing and not doing to protect people's privacy. And so also just a matter of understanding what the threats are, the actual concrete threats on the ground for people using the web for something as simple as browsing. And so the Nym Dispatch was sort of emerged as like our news branch, like the branch of Nym that would analyze what's happening in the privacy ecosystem, digitally in general, to try to bring some awareness to how actually dangerous being on the internet is if you care about your privacy. So this is our goal with the Nym Dispatch. We launched it with at a really a really interesting moment when there was a huge news revelation about this botnet, this 911S5 botnet that was just taken down by the Department of Justice in the United States. And so that was a good moment.
Super. Yeah, and we're just about to dive into these, but before that, we have something for you, Casey. By the way, I'm not sure if you're seeing the comment, but people are saying that you sound like Harry.
It's true. Now I can't unhear it. If I close my eyes, like with the current microphone setup that you have, you sound just like Harry, which is crazy. Never noticed it before.
He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy, so I'll take that as a compliment.
You're a smart guy too, so yes, do. Okay, let's see if you really are smart though with this upcoming mini game that we've made just for you as a surprise. I'll start. I hope that you know this, otherwise it might be a bit awkward, but let's go. She's a 10, but she writes passwords down in a note app.
Pass.
No, you have to rate out of 10. Give a new rating.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just like pass or go. 8 out of 10. I'm old school, so I would go 8.
8? That's very generous, actually. Okay, next one. She's a 10, but she's never heard of NymVPN.
It's fine. It's a 7. We're still working.
Still going down though. She's a 10, but she uses a free VPN.
Ooh. Wait, 1 is the worst, right? Or 10 is the worst?
No, 10 is the best, and 1 is the worst. Yeah.
Free VPNs are a problem, but I am also guilty of having used them in the past, so I'll be generous. So I'd say a 5.
Okay, I think that's fair. We can agree that's fair, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now moving on to actually that, so we already talked about Nym Dispatch, right? And the opening article of this series was about free VPNs. Now, guys, if you hopefully one of our CMs will be kind enough to find the link to the article to the free VPN Trojan horse article titled "Free VPN Trojan Horse." This was the opening article of the Nym Dispatch series. Now, it's a pretty crazy story, right? So let's start from the beginning. What is a botnet, and how can a bunch of free VPNs make you join one? Casey.
Well, this was a crazy story. So it was revealed pretty much overnight. And so the crazy part of this is that we all learned about this overnight, but it had been going on since 2012. So that's what, 14 years of activity for this scam, this huge scam network that was infiltrating 21 million devices across the world. And I think, of course, the reason why we didn't know about it is it was kept hush by the Department of Justice while they continued their investigation until they had enough to arrest the people who were responsible for it, and also to make sure, of course, that they got as much cash back as they could possibly get. So we were all taken a bit by surprise. The idea is that a botnet is it kind of functions like a residential proxy system where malware installed on users' devices permits a kind of backdoor into their systems, but an extreme one that allows remote users, or one remote user, which we would call a botnet master, a bot master, or something like this, to actually use their computers, the computers of unsuspecting people all across the world, to commit various different acts. So this could be many different types of things. One could be using someone else's computer to traffic information, so it's like child pornography or something like this. They can use it to commit fraud, but using the IP address of someone who has no idea this is happening in the background. But interesting with the story is that they defrauded the U.S. government of billions and billions of dollars from fraudulent applications to the U.S.'s unemployment system, but also at the time, during COVID, the U.S. was also rolling out lots of benefits for people, financial subsidies during COVID. And so by creating millions and millions and millions of false applicant claims, they were able to siphon off funds from those social programs. And it's something in the range of $6 billion defrauded from the U.S. government over a period of I think a lot of that was concentrated during the COVID times, but it's clearly was in effect since 2014. The key part of this story for us, because we're a VPN provider, is that this malware was installed on people's devices by downloading free VPNs. And there's a lot of free VPNs. If you go on the Android store, the Google store, whatever, there are hundreds of free VPNs available to download. These were only 6 of the hundreds that are available. And there were red flags all over the place. But what that kind of story motivated us to pursue the more general question: what are the risks of using free software like free VPNs in particular? And there are a lot of risks. So we decided to use the first series of articles on Nym Dispatch to investigate that one threat at a time.
Right, so just a quick note, guys. Free software in and of itself is fine, right? Especially free and open source software. The problem with free VPNs is that when you start thinking about how a VPN can be free, it becomes a bit of a tricky situation to imagine, you know, the operator not extracting any value for actually having to, because if you write a piece of software, right, and you distribute it for free, then you put in some work, maybe you put in some work in maintaining the software, but it's a whole different ballpark from a bunch of people using infrastructure to access the internet. That comes with costs. So if it's for free, it's always a major red flag, right? But just to spell out what happened here before we move on to some of the other examples that some of the other possible issues with free VPNs. So actually, there are these bunch of VPNs, free VPNs, about 10, 12 of them, if I remember correctly. And if we installed them, there was a backdoor in these VPNs, and your computer or device was added to a botnet. Am I right? Am I saying that right? That's absolutely insane. That's crazy stuff.
Yeah, the programs run, the malware was running as basically exec files with the names of shield VPN, period, exe. And so it was running in the background of people's systems. But so when a user would look at their report of activity, for instance, they would see, oh yeah, I downloaded shield VPN, so it must be protecting me. Because everyone knows we associate VPNs with security and privacy. And this is why I sort of called the article the Trojan horse of free VPNs. That in fact we turned to something to protect us, and when we brought it inside, it was actually doing the complete opposite of what we expected it to do. How is that possible? Well, the biggest issue is that the free VPN market is unregulated. Like if you post something on a store, who's checking the software? If millions of users download it, we have to sort of wait until something like this is revealed before we realize the threat of what we've actually done. So that raises lots of questions, but that I'll let you go.
Okay. I have a follow-up question. Just you mentioned that we hadn't heard about the case for a while, even though it's been going on since like 2014, because they were in court or something. Do you know what happened to the criminals? Is this case closed now, or what's going on?
We're still waiting. So we're still waiting for the results of the criminal investigation. But I think that the reason why we didn't hear from the DOJ or the Department of Justice in the United States was because it was an ongoing criminal investigation. So they were still collecting evidence over the years. Why it took them so long when they started the investigation is not yet clear. We have the court order. We have the document that was used to issue a warrant, an international warrant, with the collaboration of many different governments and law enforcement agencies. But that doesn't specify the total timeline. We think that the timeline is something about 8 or 9 years of investigation. And that's a long time. The person has been arrested. The bot master has been arrested. I think about $800 million has been recuperated or seized, what's called seized, by the United States government. They were operating probably with many other people, a few other people, but it seems to be a small network. But also, probably what I didn't explain is that what the botnet is in this case was a black marketplace. Sorry, a black marketplace where people could go and buy access to individual IP addresses to use their computers for various different criminal intents.
That's insane,
right? So,
dude. That's crazy.
I mean, there are different types of botnets that exist, usually on smaller scales. But what we're talking about is a botnet of 20 million users whose IP addresses are being clandestinely sold on the open market for any type of use at the buyer's discretion.
Yes,
so
and these are...
imagine you're a criminal, who knows what you do, but you need to cover up your activities, or you need to use something in order to defraud something else. You just go on the marketplace, buy some IP addresses, funnel your traffic or your information through there, or use their computer to do something to hide yourself from being identified. That's the situation we were dealing with.
Yeah, and on top of that, just a quick note before I hand over to Diane for the next question, is that these people, right, at least a bunch of them who are not just using a VPN to, you know, circumvent some like Netflix restriction or whatever, but maybe they want to preserve their privacy. They heard about these VPNs, you know, there are the paid ones. I see these free ones, why not? And then this is kind of like the opposite of that. If you have actual spyware running on your machine, and, you know, this spyware is also actually giving some criminal your IP address to do nasty things from, that's not privacy. Anyways, sorry, Diane, go on.
No worries. I'll be waiting for the Netflix documentary on this. Maybe Casey to be interviewed as an expert. But yeah, so this is an extreme case, obviously an extreme example of risks of using free VPNs. But in your article, you also mentioned other types of risks associated with free VPNs. So can you like run us through the kinds of what those are?
Yeah, but I should also say, I think this is something Sudo also said, that there's nothing wrong with a free service. Like, in fact, free services can be offered for many different types of reasons. Employers might offer free VPNs to their employees just to protect them, and they fund them themselves at no cost to the employee. There are also really good VPNs who are dedicated to privacy out there who offer free versions, more limited, slower, for instance, maybe with bandwidth caps, things like this. But those free VPNs are designed to actually protect your privacy. They actually do not have logs. They do not keep logs. They do not sell your data. They do not install random shit on your computer. But there's this other big market of free VPN services, and the large majority of them are not magnanimous. They're not looking out for your interests. As Sudo says, there's an anecdote that goes around that says, like, if the product is free, you're the product in some way. And we say it a lot, but it is true. Like, there's a kind of lesson there.
Right. Can I interject here a little bit?
Sure.
We do say this a lot, but actually, if you read the Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Zuboff, what she says, and I think it's really apt. I like this distinction. You're not the product. It's behavioral surplus. What the product is, because you on your own cannot get the same value from your data as, for example, Google can. It's the aggregate. It's behavioral surplus, not just from you, but also from all these other people. So it's like basically you're the resource, or like you're the mine that is being mined for a resource that is valuable in the right hands, which I think is an important distinction. But sorry to be so anal.
No, you're getting philosophical on me, and I like it.
Nice.
No, it's true. But I mean, like we all sort of know this intuitively, but when we might think that when I do something online, like access a website, buy a product, communicate with someone, that my privacy is mine or something like that, that I'm the center of what I do. But in fact, there's so much metadata surrounding everything that we do that it's hard to personally identify with that. And I think this explains the indifference of people to privacy technology like VPNs. If you go up to anyone on the bus and say, do you use a VPN? Why not? But don't you know that your IP address is visible? They're gonna be like, what's an IP address? That's not how I identify. Like, I don't have an IP address for my body or something like that. So it's easy to dismiss all of this digital data that's surrounding us online as not us, or as having no consequence. But in fact, what we don't see is how, when all of this is compiled, particularly now by AI-powered data tracking and analysis programs, is how much can actually be revealed about things that we do think are private. And we didn't create the metadata. We didn't create IP addresses. We didn't create timing signatures, and we'll never experience it. But we need to pay attention to, when we use technology, there are ancillary things that are happening that are not a part of us, but which can lead back to us. And it has nothing to do with trying to hide something you did wrong. That is not at all the central point. The central point is that there are people trying to extract profit from everything that we do. It's like analyzing like detailed AI analysis of our very desires, things that we're probably not even conscious of. Like, it's as if computer systems are tapping into our unconscious by way of our gestures like this and generating code from it that can then be exploited. We have, as a society, we have to decide whether we find that palatable, whether we accept that or not.
Before we venture away from the topic of VPNs, because we already have to some extent, and the next questions are going to be about different topics of Nym Dispatch. Like we originally said, this call was originally intended to talk way more about NymVPN. So that changed, but what didn't change is that we now have a public roadmap of NymVPN. It's also kind of like, it's a Trello board which shows where we are, what we've completed, what's prioritized, what's in the backlog, and what's still left. This is regularly like updated in real time. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, and if you want to keep up with the progress in real time of NymVPN and its development, then a link to the I'll also show it on screen. A link to the Trello board has been shared in the chat, so check it out and see you there. Now, venturing away from the topic of VPNs, because there is a whole bunch of other things under the Nym Dispatch umbrella, some of which you already wrote about, and some of which you're planning to write about. Now, there's this topic that I definitely wanted to ask you about, which is chat control. Now, probably everybody heard, at least since this is a Nym audience, people who follow us on Twitter or spent any time in the Nym community throughout the past few weeks, you probably heard about chat control, right? There was a lot of buzz in the general privacy space about chat control as well. This is also known as client-side scanning. So maybe for those who don't know, or maybe for the lucky non-European audience of ours who's not impacted by this monstrosity, can we start from the basics and explain what chat control is?
Sure. So, I mean, just as a note, the term chat control is a name that's given by critics of a piece of legislation. The name of the legislation, it's longer, but the short version is CSAR, Child Sexual Abuse Regulation, which was a regulation that was introduced originally in 2022 for the European Parliament to vote on. When Sudo says that it's client-side scanning, this is in reality what it is. It doesn't market itself like this. You won't find this language in the legislation. The legislation has gone through multiple changes of language because people are so pissed off and up in arms about it. Rather than changing the substance of the legislation, they decided to sort of progressively change the language so that the same privacy infringement can be more palatable to the general audience. But of course, many people are seeing straight through this tactic. It's not working, thank God, because the vote was postponed due to criticism. Okay, so what is it? What is it exactly? The first thing to say is that in Europe, at least, we have a great thing, which is that the GDPR, which is one of the GDPR, the GDPR, which is which is one of the most exhaustive privacy data protection legislations in the world, has a strong commitment to end-to-end encryption. So it basically recognizes, and court cases have continually approved this, enforced this, and reiterated the importance of this, is that breaking encryption, forcing companies to break their own encryption, is a non-starter. That encrypted messaging, the fact that when I send a message to Sudo, I do not have to worry about the fact that the cryptography protecting the content of that message will be violated by the company who facilitates the transfer of communications, Signal, Facebook, nor will it be possible for external parties to intercept the message and view it. So encryption is one of the cornerstones of online privacy. So what chat control essentially does is it abandoned the fight to get companies to break their own encryption of their users on a case-by-case basis, as might be determined by a government request for records. And what it instead does is it provides a legal demand that companies surveil their own clients on their devices before encryption is ever put in place on a piece of data. So this is what we call client-side scanning. It allows a company like WhatsApp to mandatorily scan with an AI-powered algorithm all of the data on their server or on a person's device to search for potentially illicit material related to childhood sexual abuse. No one is going to disagree with trying to fight childhood abuse, but it's
Exactly.
it's being used as a monster for us to accept, a monster that we all fear, for us to accept something that is extremely invasive on the part of tech companies and on the part of governments that demand this kind of device-centered surveillance. So it's like a backdoor. It's a backdoor on end-to-end encryption.
Exactly. Let me jump in with a bit of a tangent here, because this is what happens every single time, whether it's financial crime, of all the legislation that is basically making financial privacy not be a thing anymore. It's always the same. That's against money laundering. This time it's against child abuse, which is a goal that nobody will ever say that, hey, no, don't do that. We want that. It always happens like that, and this kind of ties in nicely with a community question that we got from Rocio. Always amazing questions, Rocio. Thanks for the question. So, how to change the thinking of those people who think that privacy only protects bad people, and tell them that's not the case. Basically, that's what the question means. What do you think about this?
Yeah, this as somebody who works for a VPN provider, this is a tough question. Like when you have to go to ordinary people and explain what a VPN does and explain why it's necessary, there's a gap of comprehension. But it's not just a gap of technical comprehension. It's not that they don't understand or that they can't understand what the technology does. It's also a question of concern, whether they think that this is important or not. And there's a dominant, we all know there's a dominant impression that that VPN technology is considered to be a tool of criminals, and I think the language of hiding, like hiding an IP address, masking an IP address, is a big language issue, especially on our end. Like I'm on the writing team, and I'm on the conceptual end of things. Like our job is to articulate these things to people to realize they need them, not to try to sell a product to people who don't need something, but to recognize that we're providing something that's going to address a need that they have, whether they realize it or not. So the language of hiding and masking is problematic. I think the best thing we can do is raise awareness of how privacy is really under threat. And to raise awareness about how data tracking works, and to show people genuinely that something like a VPN with a truly decentralized network can actually address those problems in a meaningful way. I think it's the only thing we can do. Like, we can do lots of gymnastics, like discursive gymnastics, to try to like sell products.
Discursive gymnastics. Nice one.
Yeah, I mean, well said, Casey. On that note, I also think that what we do here, being involved in like crypto, blockchain, Web3 kind of space, and doing privacy in Web3, but not just that, also in Web2, because obviously the NymVPN is for everyone. It's not just like blockchain based. I think it's like touching on a new audience, and it's been like there's been a new adoption trend over the past few years for this kind of technology. So I think that if we also put it into like hand in hand, you know, like privacy together with blockchain, things like that, I think that people are also welcoming this more. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but if you know what I mean. So I see hope in the future, and I think that what we do on Twitter as well, like doing a lot of fun stuff around privacy. We do spaces with other people, and we joke about it, and we just talk about like how how we came to care about this, why we think it's important. We never talk to like criminals or bad people, really. It's just like normal people who have a point of view on this and who are somehow involved into this. So I think that as long as there's more reach for this kind of conversations, it will be fine, and then we'll see how it goes in the future. But definitely the NymVPN is going to be like a great addition to the privacy tech. Yeah, let's move on back to chat control. We have one last question about that. Sudo mentioned that the vote was pushed back due to criticism, of course. Do you expect that it will be back, the chat control vote will be back in front of the EU Parliament?
It seems absolutely, yeah, it'll be back. So this is not the end of that story by any means. Likely what we'll see is a revised version of the proposal with language changes again, but probably little substantial changes. So I'll just give an example of what I mean by a language change. So instead of calling this client-side scanning, which it is, which means that they're scanning your device prior to encryption, they're scanning the content of your photos and your messages according to an algorithm. And it's usually an AI. It's an AI-powered thing that's been configured to look for certain types of things. So what does that mean? What does that mean concretely? It means that the algorithm has processed a lot of pictures of child pornography, and it's looking for similar cases, or it's looking for replicas of those photos, or it's looking for data points that are common to pornographic images of children, which could possibly include what? Pictures of someone's kid in a bath, someone playing in a pool outside. Like, it's analyzing how a child appears in a photo, and that's or
all of your nudes, for example, like any naked body, you know, goes for manual review. Not great, you know. Not like I send nudes to anybody, but still, it's not great.
And for just, I mean, like, let's be real about this. If you are a teenager, it's very likely that you are doing this anyway, and you're doing it in a consensual manner, and you're doing it, or potentially a consensual manner, and you're doing it in the privacy of your own, let's call it the privacy of your own phone. So all of this it's unclear how an AI system is going to be able to navigate all of this material. But it also means that all of our personal material is just exposed to some sort of computer system, which will then red flag, essentially. It will red flag a series of personal documents or messages or photos, which will then be sent to an anonymous group of human data analysts who will then decide what's a real piece of child pornography or not. And you'll never know about it. And eventually, real instances, which are probably comparatively fewer than we think, are being sent to authorities to prosecute. So there's a big question. Do we accept any of this? It's clear that people are not accepting it, and people are seeing behind the smoke and mirrors of this. But all of this process, they call this upload monitoring. This is the language they use in their legislation. When they talk about this technology of scanning a device, they're calling it upload monitoring, which sounds like what? Like an IP, like a ISP monitoring how much information you can upload to the web? No, they're surveilling your device.
Now, the interesting question here is, obviously we're doing mind reading here. I don't have an answer to this, neither do any of you, but it's interesting to speculate. What do you guys think? Is this really just about that? Just about the stated goal of protecting children from abuse and all of that stuff? Or, is it about just, having something in the toolbox on like a systemic level to enable surveilling everybody? Because I just can't imagine it just being the former. And even if it's just about being the former, like basically inevitably it will be used for the latter as well at some point in the future. But what do you guys think? Is it really just about a stated objective, or is it just is that just a decoy?
Super happy to hear what people in the comments think about this, because it's a great question. But also, I would just say that it always starts like this. Like, this is what I would call like un dispositif social, or it's like a social. I don't know how to translate dispositif. It's a piece of social technology, or it's like it's like a structure that happens. Sometimes it's discursive. It has to do with what we're expected to be scared of. So, for instance, like when the attacks on 9/11 happened, we were made to feel like, I'm an American, so as Americans, we were made to fear a particular group who were targeted, associated with a threat, and then using that, we were made to accept that invading another country and killing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people for a poorly thought out political objective was acceptable, but all in the name of fighting terrorism.
Yes,
so
sorry, go ahead. And the Patriot Act, of course, that was also pushed through under the same.
All born, and one of the results of the Patriot Act is the mass digital surveillance program that the United States is still using, even after the Bush administration. And so that's a good example. Like, this was born from a particularly conservative and warmongering political administration in a state of exception, at a time of war. But it has now become the norm for US law enforcement agencies, which actually give them backdoor access to your phone calls.
Exactly. This is very important, guys. Let me spell it out before we move on to the next topic. Casey's touching on something that I find to be very important. So basically, at the time of this war, like, just let's imagine ourselves, it's 2001. We're in America, September 11th, and your country is hit in the way that the U.S. was hit. You may even agree with regulations, and legislation to tighten the control. You may be afraid enough for that, right? But what history shows us over and over again is that once you whatever the apropos, so whatever the stated reason for something, right? Once a government or so basically, once the government has a given source of power, right? You give them this source of power. You have the Patriot Act, and basically it's legal to surveil your own citizens. It's more complicated than that. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the gist of the Patriot Act. It's not like they are ever going to say, "Hey, yeah, the threat is over, so we're giving this power back." That never happens. So, like, whatever the stated reason of anything right now is, always think about, okay, but we'll have the same in 30 years. Will this also make sense in 30 years? Always have that principle when you think about these things, and that can stop you from going down these paths that the US, for example, has gone down. Sorry for the tangent, but I find this to be very important. Now,
and this has difference. I mean, in law we call this precedence. So when a judgment is made, that judgment can then be used as a justification for later judgments. And so this is very important in law. I mean, it's massively important in general. But in terms of political policy, those policies have to be revoked by force which means, but again, like these are policies, these mass surveillance policies, these are ones that stuck. They stuck. Yeah, it's scary. And so, but for us as citizens, like as just people of the world, like we have to fight technology. We have to fight the emergence of something that allows something to be possible, physically speaking. That's technology. We have to fight legal precedents. We have to fight so that things don't become ingrained in a legal system. We have to fight political attempts to force these legal changes through. We have to fight just language, like the way people use language to distort it so that we don't make associations between when someone says, for instance, when someone says, oh no, we're just doing upload moderation. We have to be able to see beyond that and see this is mass surveillance on my device. So this battle is huge. It's widespread. Like it's not just one thing.
Yes,
it's,
exactly.
many different things at one time.
Exactly. That's very true. Knowledge is power. It's always going to be power. So to collect knowledge about you will always be the agenda, at least of someone. And this is going to be an ongoing fight, basically, for the rest of history. So participate because it's important. Now, let's move away from this topic. But before we do, I wanna tease something, guys. I'm working on putting together a panel, including, of course, Casey, on the question of chat control. I think it's a very important topic. How we got here, the different iterations of this text. As it fails to go through for a vote. Because of all the backlash that it inspires, right? How we got here, what the language is, what the changes of the language were, all of that stuff are very interesting, and I want to put together a panel. Not sure what the end result is going to be or when we're going to be able to put that on, but stay tuned because in the near future you may have we may have a chat control discussion on one of these calls. And moving on, I will hand over to you, Diane, for the last non-community question for Casey. Also, hopefully with a teaser.
Yeah, thanks, Sudo. We'll move on to community Q&A soon, but just one last question for Casey. So we've mentioned that Nym Dispatch is an ongoing series, and it's just started with 2 articles. Can you give us a little teaser of what to expect in the future, near future?
Well, remember that the Nym Dispatch is always going to be responding to what happens. So who knows what's going to come up in the news that's going to be
Weasel.
That's going to need us to comment on it. I mean, what we have planned is to continue the series analyzing the deceptive practices and the exploitative practice of free VPNs. Why? Because nearly one third of the people in the world have used or are using a VPN. And half of those, so nearly 600 million users, are using a free service rather than a paid service. So what we're concerned about is informing 600 million people about what the risks of that are. And so we want to break those down. Like we could write like one big thing explaining all of it, but actually the risks are quite different. And so things that VPNs are doing are things like injecting advertising into your traffic so that, and how do they do that? Well, they log and analyze all your traffic history so they know what you want. They also allow third parties to install cookies on your browser or device, which are tracking agents.
Yeah, so guys,
and the shocking thing is, all of this is stated explicitly in their terms and conditions. They just use language that makes you not see it. So when they say we share your data, we can share your data with our partners. Who's a partner? What does that mean exactly? Like, who have you partnered with? Like, the language of that permits any kind of financial arrangement for data sharing of their clients with third parties. And we accept that. If we had to read every single piece of every single terms and conditions that we're forced to accept on a day-to-day basis online, it would exceed many times our lifespan.
Yeah, exactly. That nobody ever reads. These are called, what are these called? There's a legal name for this kind of
disclaimers
adherent, or I can't remember the name, unfortunately. Once again, from the age of surveillance capitalism. Basically, if you usually if you accept, for example, the terms of Google, you don't only accept the terms of Google, but also all the other partners that they have. Sometimes it's like thousands upon thousands of pages worth of legal text that you agree to. So it's like,
and none of this is disclosed in the thing you sign.
Yes. Now, actually, of course, this may sound weird from Nym. Obviously, one of the things that we're doing right now, the first use case of the Mixnet is going to be a VPN. So it may look like we're trying to shill NymVPN. I will be very upfront with you guys. I don't care what you use. You can go to any of the million different competitors of ours, but free VPNs, please, for the love of God, stay away from them because they are very, very bad. And it's not only so. Stay tuned and keep an eye on the Nym Dispatch for further information about this. But you can also check out other creators. Like there's a whole bunch of content on YouTube and elsewhere. Why can I remember her name? Made a really good video about free VPNs. God damn it. Anyways, I'll leave a link in the comments to the video after the fact. So yeah, it's just please don't use free VPNs. Use whatever you want. It's not just about NymVPN. It's about keeping you safe. And also, I will add yes, now in Brockwell. Thank you, Diane. So also one more thing to add about VPNs, right? Why they are in a very unique place to be able to do things. What Casey just give you a rundown on. They stand in between you and the internet, right? It's a massive position of trust. All of your traffic goes through the VPN provider, and this is why a decentralized VPN is such a big deal, right? Where your traffic goes through multiple entities and none of them know anything about you, right? Which is like proven and so achieved and proven by open source code. In the case of a regular VPN, it's not that clear cut. It's always a matter of trusting someone with your data, with all of your data going through this one centralized point in between you and the internet, right? So so just imagine how much data you're trafficking, or how much data you're using every month or every week, and imagine multiply that by 1,000, and let's say you set up a VPN provider which provides service for free for 1,000 people. That gets like very heavy resource-wise very quick, and it just doesn't make any like economical sense for anybody to do that, other than some of the players with their hearts in the right place, who Casey mentioned, Proton being one of the examples, by the way, who have they have an excellent VPN, guys. So Proton is an OG of the space among the other privacy preserving stuff that they have. And their VPN has a free tier, right? Because they find it important to offer this service, even if you don't have the money to access it. Obviously, speed is lower or whatever, but it's not fundamentally built around installing malware on your computer or surveilling you in any way. That was a really long tangent, so apologies for that. Any further comments here before we go into the community Q&A? Nope.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
We have questions from the very beginning, actually. Do you have a list for those?
No, look, let's start. I always, not always, but sometimes forget about the Matrix questions, the ones that we get from Matrix. So today, let's start with those. Okay, so this one is from Mr. Smith, John Smith. Thanks for the question, sir. I've noticed that on F-Droid, it says that NymVPN has features, quote, has features you may not like, unquote. I know it is a standard phrase, but can you share what components, apart from actual VPN, does NymVPN have? Not sure whether this question fit into the discussion, but still. Yeah, so I'm not sure whether any of us can answer this question. I don't know the answer, but I wanted to ask. Maybe you know, Casey and Diane.
Sorry, I did not. Maybe I'm not sure I understood the question. What components does NymVPN offer that others don't? Or
yeah. So yeah. What besides the VPN itself? What components does NymVPN the app have? For context, F-Droid is this like third-party app store on Android, which is just like the Google App Store, but it's privacy preserving, and it has some standards for your application to be listed, and it doesn't. So if you use F-Droid only, then you can remove the Google Play services from your phone, which is a major which is a major way of Google surveilling you. So this is F-Droid. It's a privacy preserving like app store. And in that app store, apparently, I was not aware of this. It says NymVPN has features you may not like. I don't know what that means, but basically based on this, this like prompt, John is asking what other components NymVPN has.
I'm not sure.
No idea.
I can answer that. I mean, I can talk. I can talk about. I mean, like we can all talk about what makes the infrastructure behind NymVPN the most important part, not just the app, but like the infrastructure behind it. But I'm not sure that that's what the question's asking, so I don't want to necessarily go there.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if you're, especially if you're asking why F-Droid has this this prompt there. I'm not sure. I'm not aware why they put it there, and also I don't know. So maybe if you ask it on in our dev channel on Matrix, our devs will be able to answer.
I mean, the only
question.
thing I can think of is maybe like the speed is a bit slow sometimes, but that's not really a component. So
Yes.
Yeah, there's another question that's in the chat too about competitors. There are competitors who are creating something similar to the Mixnet, mentioned Mulvad. Is Nym looking at competitors / aware of what they're doing in order to not lose competitive advantage?
Great question.
Yeah. So the thing to keep in, I think the thing to keep in mind here is that what the Nym Mixnet represents is a new type of thing, and it's not alone in doing this. There are other people. There are other companies, other projects that are developing different, complex, sometimes similar decentralized networks. There are not that many. Mulvad is doing this now. I think we were doing it first, but that's beside the point. But the ultimately at Nym, I think that what we want to do is to make systems like this work so that they actually can protect people's privacy. Our goal is not, I think our primary goal is not just to win some sort of competition game between other people. It's to make sure that the internet actually does become private by default. And so we think I think on some level, I can't speak for the company, but like from my personal understanding of how we relate to our competitors, it's that there are competitors who we consider allies. Like Sudo already said that, like Proton, excellent VPN in terms of privacy.
Exactly.
And also the fact that they offer a free version, which for people in parts of the world, that might make a big difference if you don't have money, but you need to bypass censorship laws.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. Now, sorry, go.
No.
So that's exactly right. Rest assured, guys, just like anybody else would, we of course keep a close eye on the competitors. Everybody would do that, you know. Even if it wasn't for Nym, I would just generally be keeping an eye on the VPN market, because I find it to be a very important like pillar of people being able to protect their privacy. So on my side, I've said this many times on community calls when it comes to, for example, the UPA, the Universal Privacy Alliance, which Nym headed along with some other projects. We were founding members. I really, just like Casey mentioned, I don't necessarily see us as competitors. That's definitely true with other projects in the privacy space within Web3. And to some extent, it's also true of VPN providers, right? So I don't really care which VPN you use. I know which one I'm going to be using because for now, let's be clear. So Mixnet integration into any VPN does not exist. And if you read the white paper and look into what Nym is, all the complexity, that the end result of which being your like top-notch privacy does not exist anywhere. So I'm very confident of that fact. I don't care which one you use though. Please use a good one, right? As long as your privacy is protected, I'm super happy. And if competitors end up implementing some stuff that they first saw on Nym, and for that reason, the overall privacy of the world and everybody who's using those services is increased, I'm a happy camper. And that also includes, if down the line there will be a competing VPN even on the Nym Mixnet, I will be a happy camper, because competition always leads to great things. If we could bring some other providers, to provide better privacy protection to their users, I'm super happy. If we can root out together, maybe with those providers, or just by Nym being successful, we can root out all the bad practices, all the fake claims that are in the industry, all of that stuff. I'm even happier. So this is not just about Nym. This is about everybody having their privacy in an unquestionable way, in a way which where nobody can take it away. And these are all steps. However we get there, I don't mind. The point is, that we get there. Sorry for the long rant. Let's look at the YouTube question. Sorry, guys. I think we're going to have to go over, if you're fine with that, like 5 minutes or so. Are you okay with that? Okay, good. Diane, did you find a question yet? I was so busy speaking, I was not looking at the chats.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't get much questions on YouTube. One I see is whether Casey will do a series on WikiLeaks for Nym Dispatch.
I mean, it depends whether there's developments with WikiLeaks. I mean, Assange is free, and we can expect commentaries from Harry Appin soon, because Harry's been very involved in this process for a long time. So he's going to be the person to directly speak to it, and especially the role in cryptocurrencies in supporting things like Assange's ongoing legal troubles over the years, and like the community effort that went in behind to make that possible. And that's, I think, it's an incredible development in the social use value of cryptocurrency, and also just community contributions and activism across the board. So it won't necessarily be under the context of Nym Dispatch, but maybe. But it will be, I think Harry's going to be the one to speak to that. So
yeah, very quickly, because we're over time, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I am personally super happy to see Assange finally free. It was indeed a community effort. It wouldn't have happened without all of the people keeping governments accountable, and keep beating the drums, keep talking about it. If it didn't happen for the past 15 years, he would not be free. So it's a good job, anybody who participated. Obviously, you probably don't need no introduction on the connection between Nym and Assange. There's quite a few of those, probably, Chelsea Manning and Assange. I don't need to introduce you to that link. Also, Harry's a friend of Assange's. So it's obviously even beyond just what it means more broadly for the privacy space and journalism. We are really, really happy to see on a personal level as well, Assange finally free, and this injustice undone, kind of. Well, the 15 years have passed, but at least now he's free and alive. So that's huge. Next question from Rocio. I think this is hopefully I'm not skipping any questions. Wait a second. Oh yeah, here it is. This one is from Rocio. Once again, back with an amazing question. Oh wait, I already asked this one. Sorry guys. Let's ask this one instead.
There was a question about writing, which was a good question.
Exactly. This is a good question. So Rosie is asking, as a writer, what do you advise those of us who want to get involved in creating content to educate our audiences on the topic of privacy? That's a very good question.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like it a lot. I think we have to. I think that one of the biggest obstacles is that we should stop trying to write content like this abstract thing that is like just like almost like an anonymous Nym data packet that is just meant to be that is kind of like given to the public to consume. And the more people who touch it or like it or something like that will demonstrate somehow its quality. Like I think me personally, I don't know, like I'm not the best. I might not be the best person to like comment on the industry of writing in this field, but I feel like I feel like people still can recognize good writing, and they can still recognize facts, and that they can still recognize what's persuasive and what's not. And then we shouldn't skip to gimmicks. I think we should avoid gimmicks at all costs. And so, how to advise those to get into creating content? Be honest. First of all, like let's just tell the truth about what's happening. And if we can't tell the truth about what's happening, it's probably because we're trying to sell a product that's manipulative. And that's not a good situation. But also content is very diverse. It's not just writing, it's images, it's also engagements on social media, which take different forms. It's about getting people to recognize something that's true, or getting them to play and have fun with what's false, but without losing the center of truth.
Excellent.
That was a bit of an abstract answer, but
Excellent point to finish on, I guess. It was a really good answer to a really good question. Thanks for the question, Rocio. Now, before we say goodbye here, do you guys have any closing remarks on any of the things discussed?
Diane?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we had a really in-depth conversation, and not super in-depth. It was kind of like, it was good. It's the kind of conversation that could go on for hours, I would say. Like, you could be on a podcast for 3 hours and talk about this, especially the decoy part, like the way the government likes to ward specific regulations to pass. I think that's something that's very interesting and important. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Casey. I hope we'll see you back here soon, and can't wait to read more of your articles. I read all of them, you know I do, and I post about it on Twitter. So yeah, thank you so much for your content.
Thanks for the conversation. Thanks everyone for watching.
I second that. Thanks for jumping on, Casey. And thanks, Diane, for coming on as co-host. We should do this more often. It was really, really fun. And finally, some variety from the Hawk Sudo or just Sudo combo. Now, with all of that said, let me say the goodbye stuff. Very, very nice of you to join us today, dear Nym community. Hopefully you had a bit of fun, because we definitely did. Don't forget to drop a like, algorithm, whatnot. Also leave a comment. If you have any questions, by the way, even after this call is over, you can still leave it in the chat. Diane and I are keeping an eye on YouTube. So if you ask any questions, then we can also answer them there. Huge thanks again for joining. And now you know what's coming, because of course there is just like it is a tradition here at Nym, you will get a POAP, your own NFT for joining this very exquisite and very amazing event. So yeah, the secret phrase, sorry guys, I'm not very creative these days. I didn't put in a lot of thought into this. It's Nym Dispatch with capital N and capital D. Wait a second, I'm waiting for the secret phrase. Go here, nimtech.net/go/POAP. And wait, where's the secret phrase? There it is. Nym Dispatch with this spelling. All of this is in chat, so hurry up because you have, I don't even know how long, but it's a limited time thing. Thanks for joining us once again, guys. You can find us, of course, on Matrix, Twitter, Telegram, Discord, all of that good stuff. You can find me as Sudo. You also had Diane and Casey with us today. Big thanks for joining, and see you all next week. Bye, everyone. Oh, and don't forget to check out the new NymVPN roadmap on Trello. A link to it was shared in the live chat. Have fun, everybody. Have a lovely evening.